Well, hello, I'm Jeffrey Daugherty, the Christian Whistleblower. This is the Gospel Truth channel, and I'm here this morning, to talk about the search for parabiblical wisdom and continue our look into the teachings of H.P. Blavatsky. And we've been going through the beginning of her book, and we've been looking at definitions, and we've been finding fascinating information within these definitions. And we're going to continue our look at this great source of parabiblical information. And of course, just because I am talking about H.P. Blavatsky's work, oh, that's good coffee. It does not mean that I 100% agree with her. And it does not mean that I 100% endorse her, but it does mean that I do find great physical wisdom, or great spiritual wisdom, yes, Jen, in some of her teachings. And I want to share it with you. So let's take a look at a search for parabiblical wisdom within the teachings of Madame Blavatsky, H.P. Blavatsky. And let's talk about this. Let's look at some of her, continue on where we've looked with some definitions. And the next definition we find ourselves looking at is hermetist. Hermetist. This comes from Hermes, who is the god of wisdom, known in Egypt, Syria, and Phoenicia as Thoth, Tot, Adad, Seth, and Satan or Satan, not to be taken in this sense as applied to it by the Muslims and the Christians, and in Greek as Cadmus. It's interesting that within the mind, within the Jewish mindset, and within the Christian mindset, and within the Muslim mindset, of course, we know Muslim now, that Satan, the adversary, they equate Hermes, they equate Thoth as the adversary. How interesting is that? Ralph Waldo Emerson, influence on Alcott and Blavatsky. Interesting. How interesting is it that the Muslims and the Christians and the Jews have a dim view of Satan, or the Satan, and the Satan is linked with Hermes. Very interesting. The Kabbalists identify him with Adam Kadmon, the first manifestation of divine power, and with Enoch. There were two Hermes. The elder was the Trimegistus, and the second an emanation, a permutation of himself. Now, you know how we do. We always want to look up everything that we find that we don't know the direct answer to. So let's see if we can look up Trimegistus and see what we get of it. Because if you go past a word that you don't understand, I'm trying to think of the right word. Your ability to understand what you read past that is reduced by up to 60%. So Hermes Trimegistus means thrice greatest Hermes. So that means like Hermes times 3. So the Trimegistus is a representation of the syncretic combination of the Greek god Hermes and the Egyptian god Thoth. Now, syncretic means putting two together, combining of different beliefs. So now say you know so much more than you did know, some of you. Hermes Trimegistus means the combination of Hermes and Thoth. See, that's powerful information. That's why you look things up instead of just blindly blithering along. The elder is the Trimegistus, and the second, a permutation of himself, the friend and instructor of Osiris and Isis. Hermes is the god of priestly wisdom. Very, very interesting. Very, very revealing to us. Now we come up with the Hierophant next. Hierophant is the next definition that Blavatsky talks about. And many of you will be thinking about the Hierophant card that comes from tarot. This is the Hierophant right here. So Blavatsky is talking about the Hierophant. And of course, there is some crossover to the tarot because the Rider-Waite Tarot was really written for the practitioners of the occult, such as Blavatsky. So with that in mind, let's continue to look at the Hierophant. And according to Blavatsky, a Hierophant is a discloser of sacred learning. The old man, the chief of adepts at the initiations, who explained the arcane knowledge to neophytes, bore this title. In the Hebrew and Chaldaic term, was Peter, or opener. Hence the Pope, as the successors of the Hierophant of the ancient mysteries, sits in the pagan chair of St. Peter. Now, how fascinating is that? Many of you just thought, well, just because Peter was the first Pope, well, there's some problems with that. Peter was never in Rome, number one. And it's my contention that Peter obviously was never in Rome, and that Paul created the tradition of popes changing their name. Paul was the first pope, and he had such a rivalry with Peter. In order to identify Peter with that which he hated, he changed his name to Peter. So there you go. But here's another talk about why it's named Peter, because the Hierophant was known as the Peter. There's a phallic joke in there somewhere about men thinking with a certain organ, but he sits in the chair of the ancient mysteries, the chair of St. Peter, which really is the chair of the Hierophant, which also leads us into the realization of why the reformers were so against the Pope, because the Pope was trying to call himself not only the Christ, but the Hierophant. And the vindictiveness of the Catholic Church towards the alchemist and to arcane and astronomical science is explained by the fact that such knowledge was the ancient prerogative of the Hierophant, men who kept the mysteries of life and death. So it was very interesting that the Catholic Church not only wanted to take over the biblical reigns and control everything with biblical knowledge and wisdom and of biblical religion, but they wanted to also take over the seat of the Hierophant. That's amazing. That is amazing. And they murdered those that stood in their way. Very, very interesting stuff. And Blavatsky posits that every nation had its mysteries and its hierophants. And some of you, as you're looking at your ancient gods, will realize these things. Some of them were imparting the knowledge of the Merkaba. Do you know what a Merkaba is? Well, let's take a little look at the Merkaba, because it's important that we understand these concepts. What is the Merkaba? The Merkaba, according to Wikipedia, is an early school of Jewish mysticism. And the Merkaba itself is a geometric figure that you see right here. So again, make sure that you look things up and don't just go by. In India, in ancient times, 1, 2, and now several hierophants scattered about the country attached to the principal pagodas, who are known as the Brahma Atmas. So in Tibet, the chief hierophant is the Dalai or Dalai Lama of Lhasa. So the Dalai Lama is a hierophant. How interesting is that? How interesting is that? Among Christian nations, the Catholic alone have preserved this heathen custom in the person of their Pope, albeit they've sadly disfigured its majesty and dignity. Isn't that amazing? The things that you learn from H.P. Blavatsky, Jen Fisher. And I think we were talking about this the other day. What is an initiate? Well, an initiate is one who had been initiated into the arcane knowledge taught by hierophants. And in modern days, those have been initiated by adepts of mystic lore into the mysterious knowledge, notwithstanding the lapse of ages, that there's not really many teachers left here on the earth, or votaries. So an initiate is someone that's learning from a hierophant. And I'm wondering if we should not attempt to try to find a order of higher arcane knowledge and occult wisdom that we can join ourselves, just for the experience of nothing else, of understanding what a occult order looks like, what a place of arcane knowledge looks like, and what a regimented system of initiation and progression is. These big words hurt my brain. Well, you got to get your brain in order. I'm really thinking about that. To me, that's interesting. And a Kabbalist, what's a Kabbalist? Well, that is from the written or oral tradition. The Kabbalist is a student of the secret science, one who interprets the meaning of scriptures with the help of the symbolic Kabbalah. How can we sleep away from our devices if it means we miss a notification? The Tannim were the first Kabbalists among the Jews. They appeared at Jerusalem. The books of Ezekiel, Daniel, and Revelation of St. John are purely Kabbalistic. I wouldn't say purely, but there's a lot of Kabbalistic information within Daniel and Revelation and Ezekiel for sure. This secret doctrine is identical with that of the Chaldeans and includes at the same time much of the Persian wisdom or magic. Now, what you have to understand is that Chaldeans, Persian, that's all Babylon. That is Babylon. And the Jews were first in Babylon. And it was in Babylon that they truly became Hebrews. It was in Babylon that they rebelled against the rest of humanity, sold us out, and took up with he that shall not be named. And probably took a lot of this wisdom with them. Very interesting stuff. Now, what are the lamas, like the Dalai Lama? Those are monks belonging to the Lamaic religion of Tibet. Friars are the monks belonging to the Roman Catholic religion, and lamas are the monks belonging to the Buddhist tradition. So now you have a better understanding of what the lamas are. They're the monks of the Buddhists. Every lama is subject to the Dalai Lama, which is basically the Pope of Tibet, and who is, according to their thinking, a reincarnation of the Buddha. Very interesting stuff. Very, very interesting stuff. Many people don't take the time to read these things and learn these things. That's why many people are so ignorant of spiritual things, ignorant being lack of knowledge. The mage or magician, magian, it's the root word of the word magician. A mage or mage is the root word of magician. Magi, do you remember the Magi? They're the ones that supposedly came to the birth of Christ, which of course didn't happen. But it's still interesting that they let Magi slip into the New Testament. The Mahatma in India had its priest in pre-Vedic times. The Magians were priests of the fire god. We find them among the Assyrians and the Babylonians and among the Persian fire worshippers. So now we're starting to get into Jinn. The DJINN, not Jen Fisher. The three magi that were said to have brought gifts to the infant Jesus were fire worshipers and astrologers, for they saw his star. How fascinating is that? Jinn worshipers. Very, very interesting stuff. Very, very interesting stuff. I find it hard to have the time to read because I'm always watching Jeffrey. Now, here's a good word, magician. What is a magician? What is a magician? A magician, the term has become wholly perverted, I agree. It was once thought to be honorable and reverent, a person professing of learning and knowledge. It's now degraded into an epithet. What's an epithet? I know that a lot of you don't know what one of those is, so let's look it up. This is how you learn. This is how you gain wisdom. What is an epithet? An epithet is an adjective or descriptive phrase expressing a characteristic of a person or a thing. An epithet is normally a term of abuse. So an epithet is a term of abuse. Conspiracy theorist, idiot, fool. That is what an epithet is. Now it's on someone who's a pretender, a juggler, a charlatan, or in short, one who has sold his soul to the devil. And that's what Christianity has brought us to. Or one who misuses his knowledge, employs it for low and dangerous uses. According to the teachings of the clergy, a mass of superstitious fools who believe the magician, a sorcerer, and an enchanter. How amazing is that? But Christians forget, apparently, that Moses was also a magician, and Daniel, the master of the magicians, astrologers, Chaldeans, and soothsayers, from Daniel chapter 5, verse number 2. Let's take a look at that, just for fun and giggles. Daniel 5:2. And the next time one of your Christian friends tells you how bad it is to be a magician, you can point this out to them. Oh, come on now. Why are you going to do me that way? All right. Here we go. There is a man in thy kingdom who is in the spirit of the holy gods. The days of thy father light in understanding wisdom. Like the wisdom of the gods was found in him, whom the king Nebuchadnezzar said, I say, your father has made you a master of the magicians, the astrologers, the Chaldeans, and the soothsayers. Who was made the master of magicians, astrologers, Chaldeans, and soothsayers? Daniel. So next time somebody wants to give you crap about magic, go ahead and point that verse out to them. You're so right, Tanhawk Group. Very well stated. So a magician, as Daniel was, what is a magician? The word magician, then, scientifically speaking, is derived from mag, ma, Hindu, or the Sanskrit mahu. A man well-versed in the secret or esoteric knowledge, a sacerdote. So a magician is a person well-versed in the secret or esoteric knowledge. Now, you know we got to look this word up and see what the heck that means. A sacerdote is a priest or priestess. A sacerdote, a highly learned person. How awesome is that? Learning all kinds of things early morning with the Christian whistleblower, Jeffrey Daugherty, in the Gospel Truth program. I find it very interesting that there's a lot of comments in the chat room about having mind blown. And we are the people that are most into this type of information. And if our minds are blown from what is really basic information, how far humanity has fallen from true and real knowledge. Manticism, mantic frenzy. From this developed the gift of prophecy. The two words are nearly synonymous. Pythagoras and Plato held it in high esteem, and Socrates advised his disciples to study manticism. The church fathers condemned so severely the mantic frenzy, and pagan priests were not above applying it for their own uses. The Montanists, who took their name from Montanus, a bishop of Phrygia, who was considered divinely inspired, rivaled with the Mantis or the prophets. Tertullian, Augustine, and the martyrs of Carthage were of the number, says the author, Prophecy, Ancient and Modern. So Tertullian and Augustine, two of the supposed church fathers, were people that would go into prophetic frenzy, which is very interesting. Very, very interesting. And Blavatsky says it was even like the Bacchantes who had orgies. I don't think Tertullian and Augustine went into the orgy part of it, but they did go into a mantic frenzy and prophesy, reminding me of Saint Teresa of the Jesuit order, who did the same thing. Very, very interesting. Cicero says that in the inner recesses of the mind is divine prophecy hidden and confined, a divine impulse, which when it burns more vividly is called furor, frenzy, or madness. Wow, that is very, very interesting stuff. Very, very interesting stuff. But there's still another etymology possible for the word mantis. Who knows what etymology means? This is stuff that is powerful, folks. Etymology means what? Etymology means the study of the origin of words and the ways in which their meanings have changed throughout history. So another source for the origin of this word, manticism, which we will no doubt, if the attention of the philosophist was ever drawn, the mantic frenzy may perchance have an earlier origin. There were two sacrificial cups of the Soma mystery used during religious rites. Generally known as the grahas, they were the sukra and the manti. Dudes, this is great stuff. Zemu, no, I don't think they're ready for Zemu yet, Lee. But in the manti cup, it was stirred up. And the initiate drank the soma juice, and the spirit of the Brahma or the soma entered into the man and took possession of him, bringing ecstatic vision, clairvoyance, which is speaking to the dead, and the gift of prophecy. Both kinds of divination, the natural and the artificial, are aroused by the soma. Makes me think of Sonoma for some reason. The Sukra cup awakens that which is given to every man by nature. It unites spirit and soul. It stirs up the Brahma and allows you to see things and to hear things and to, I guess, speak forth things. It reminds one of the ayahuasca, the DMT, etc. I'm not advocating it. I'm just making a interesting connection. Bypassing the human mind and bringing forth a direct connection from spirit. Boy, that's interesting stuff. Caduceus Hermes Trimagestus. We just learned that, Lee, before you got here, I think. Thrice greatest, Trimagestus. Let's look at one more, mantra. We talk about mantras. Say a mantra. Well, what does mantra mean? It means it conveys the same idea as the ineffable name. Some mantras, when pronounced according to magical formulas, produce an instantaneous and wonderful effect. In general, though, a mantra is simply a prayer to the gods and powers of heaven as taught by Brahmanical books, or else a magic charm. In the esoteric sense, the word of the mantra or mystic speech is called by the Brahmins vak. It resides in the mantra, which literally means those parts of the sacred books which are considered divine direct revelation. So a mantra really is powerful. A mantra really is powerful. I like this stuff. I like talking about things that people don't talk about. I like looking into the depth of depth. Materialization. Here's something you don't hear about a lot. Materialization is a word employed by spiritualists to indicate the phenomenon of a spirit clothing itself with a material form. The far less objectionable term, form manifestation, has recently been suggested. When the real nature of these apparitions is better comprehended, a still more appropriate name will doubtless be adopted. To call them materialized spirits is inadmissible, for they're not spirits, but animated portrait statues. Now that's interesting. That's interesting. Very, very interesting. Why would a spirit clothe itself in material form? Why do spirits desire to show themselves to us? I don't know. But I find it interesting why they would desire to do so. I almost think that they would do it almost from a place of wanting to be deceitful. Okay, folks, here you go. Check this one out. This will be the last one because I can see I'm losing you already. 30 minutes is about the limit that people can really get it and understand. Metempsychosis. The progress of the soul from one state of existence to another. Now, we've been talking about this within our Western Book of the Dead. The progress of the soul from one stage of existence to another. Symbolized and vulgarly believed to be rebirths in animal bodies. No, not that at all. A term generally misunderstood by every class, I agree. So we are really attempting and reaching for a metempsychosis. We want to progress our soul to progress from one stage of existence to another. That's what it's really all about. That's what we want to do. And our progress from one state to another has to do with understanding the mysteries, the observances, generally kept secret from the profane and the uninitiated, the dramatic representation and other methods, the science, the medicine, the music, the divination, the mystic obligations, the rites that are learned and passed on by wisdom of the ages. That's what allows us to reach into metempsychosis. And most of it is given by the mystics, those who are initiated, those who teach, those who are prophetic. Interesting. Interesting. And let's finish with this. What is an occultist? It's a bad person. It's a scary person. No, it's a person who studies the various branches of occult science. What does occult mean? Occult simply means hidden. Occultism embraces the whole range of psychological, physiological, cosmical, physical, and spiritual phenomenon. From the word occult, hidden or secret, applying therefore the study of Kabbalah, astrology, alchemy, and all the arcane sciences. And since Jen asked about this, we'll look at the pagan gods. The term is erroneously understood by most to mean pagan idols. The idea attached to them is not of something objective or anthropomorphical, or meaning made to look like a human. What pagan gods are the gods that are usually a visible manifestation of the potency of nature. Pagan really just means the gods that are outside of the understanding of the dominant religion of the day. So any god now that is not the Christian God is a pagan god. And that's why Christianity uses it as a epithet. Remember, we learned that word earlier. So pagan god does not mean bad god, fallen god, demonic god. Pagan is merely an epithet that is hurled by the practitioners of Roman religion, be it Roman Catholicism or Roman Protestantism, to cast aspersion on those of us that hold to divinity and deity that is outside their realm. If you want to know what a pagan is, go look in the mirror. Anyone that worships or calls upon a deity or deals with the deity that is outside the deity of the dominant religious paradigm, in this case being Roman Catholicism or Roman Christianity. I'm pagan and proud. Pagan also means country dweller, but when we're talking about gods, it would mean those gods that are outside the dominant religious paradigm. So, folks, this is what you call parabiblical wisdom. This is what you call wisdom that comes from sources outside of the Bible, but yet is in accordance with the true teachings of the Bible, the diamond and not the dung. That's powerful stuff. That's interesting stuff. And we can continue to go through and look at these as we go on. And we're at P on our way to Z. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Jeffrey Daugherty, the Christian Whistleblower. This has been the Gospel Truth broadcast on the Gospel Truth channel. And we talked today about, and we continued our search for parabiblical wisdom. I hope that you will study your ancestral gods. I hope you will make a list of them. I hope that you will learn their pronunciations. I hope that you will learn what they do and what they did and what they are gods or goddesses of. And I hope that you will ponder how you may think of contacting them to see if they will help us on our quest, not to kill, not to destroy, but to evict the current God of this world, the current husbandman of the vineyard who has proven himself unworthy and needs to be replaced. They would help us in exchange for receiving honor, respect. They would help us in exchange for having their name once again flow from the lips of men and women. And it could be a great quid pro quo claris situation, I hope. Think about it, ponder it, and we'll continue to talk about it in the coming days. Either the world's gone crazy or you have. I'm here to help you decide which one and what to do afterwards. You don't have original sin. You got the spark of divinity within. Love yourself. Love your neighbor. Be excellent to each other. Unindoctrinate yourself. And stay fearless my friends,